Humanity Matters.
Welcome to Habits of a Whole Heart. My name is Arnie Herz, and I am your host. And this is part of the Humanity Matters series on hmTv. Please follow us on Spotify, YouTube, and through all the major podcast outlets. This is an incredible series of podcasts. So far, there's been over 400 episodes. Habits of a Whole Heart is now filming our 33rd episode. And I'm very pleased to have with me as my guest today, Wendy Shulman. Wendy is a healer extraordinaire who is the founder and owner of the Roslyn Salt Cave. And I didn't know anything about salt caves, which I'll share a little bit of as the series progresses. But Wendy has a fascinating experience. She was in a terrible car accident, which was very unfortunate, but that became the catalyst for her own journey to find purpose and meaning and healing. And so I'd love to hear more. And I think I mentioned you're from South Africa, as our listeners could hear.
It's true. And thank you for having me on. This is very civilized.
Very civilized.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. So Wendy, tell us a little bit about, your car accident and what led you on to healing, and we'll just have a conversation here. We started talking before the cameras rolled, and it was just a very easy conversation.
Let's do it. So yes, I was born in South Africa. My dad was a doctor, a good old-fashioned doctor. He used to deliver, the babies, and he made house calls, and I knew nothing about alternative healing. If we got sick, we popped a pill or took a shot, and then I got into a car accident 30 years ago in LA, and it wasn't, I know you said unfortunate, but I don't really believe in that. I think it was actually a gift, and it really introduced me to my life purpose. And I traveled the world, and I worked with all different healers, and it was a real catalyst into my life purpose. And so I had a vision of a wellness center, and that was 30 years ago. And I always knew I had a destiny. I really believe that we have a destiny, and I couldn't believe that the universe took so long. I used to get so frustrated. I would say, how come? I know what I'm supposed to do. Like, did you forget about me? What are you thinking up there? And I don't say it that nicely, though.
Right.
And eventually, when I opened the wellness center, which was 8 years ago, I understood. I understood that I wasn't ready before. I didn't have enough confidence. The world wasn't ready for a place that had energy medicine and sold crystals and some psychics and so many modalities. So the universe knows what it's doing.
So how did you come to discover all these different modalities, and how did you you traveled the world, you said? So
traveled the world. So what happened was I went to a traditional healer, regular doctors to try and heal me. And I remember I got a cortisone shot because I wanted to go back to work. At the time I was working at the Four Seasons Hotel in Beverly Hills as a concierge, and Dr. Deepak Chopra was staying there as a guest. And it happened to be a moment that was really quiet. It was just him and me. And I walked up to him and I said, "How old were you when you found your peace?" So he goes, I don't even know where that question came from. So I go, hold on. He goes, hold on a second. And he goes upstairs and he comes down with this book called The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. And the first paragraph in that book says something like, your dreams become your desires is your destiny. So I went home that day and I read that passage over and over, and I thought, I'm going to find out what this car accident and this neck injury that I got has to do with my life purpose. So that was really a real catalyst for me. Deepak Chopra was, and he's come up a few other times in my life, which I'll tell you about. And so then I quit after being at the hotel for 6 years. Amazing job. It was so much fun, lots of celebrities. And then I decided to go in search of my life purpose, whatever that was. So
this is fascinating. So where did your search lead you?
So I started working in a spa, just selling. I was good at sales, and I thought, okay, let me see what I want to do when I grow up, and search for my destiny. And after working there for a while, they offered me the management position. And I was like, no, thanks. Like, I'm searching for my destiny. And then I was driving home that day and I had a vision of this wellness center. I was stopped at a traffic light, just like I can see you here right now. It's like I can see that vision. And I was like, oh, I'm such an idiot. Why did I say no to that job? Got back in my car, I got back on the road and I went to the manager, to the owner, and I said, yes, I want the job. And I understood that I was supposed to have a wellness center. That was the first glimpse I had of it. And that was 30 years ago. And so I then started traveling the world. And what that did for me was it made me my intuition really good. It helped me develop my intuition. I got to see who was really good at what they did and what motivated people to be healers and who was really bad. And it was such an eye-opening experience. I didn't know there were so many modalities in the world. I met so many people who had healed themselves through diet and prayer and exercise and, different modalities that I had no idea existed. I just knew if we got sick, you popped a pill or got a shot or took antibiotics.
Right.
So that was really the beginning for me. I went to Austria and I went to all places in the world and I met so many interesting people and it was fantastic.
So you mentioned the word intuition. How do you develop this intuition? And what is it exactly for our listeners?
So for me, what it means is a gut feeling. And so I got really good at trusting my gut feeling. Sometimes you'll do something and you're not supposed to. It feels wrong, but you'll do it anyway. For me, that's my intuition. If something feels right, I trust it. So it's more than just intuition. For me, I feel like it's real guidance. Like when people come into the Salt Cave and the wellness center and they say, wow, this is really beautiful. And I say it's all guided. And I really believe that we get guidance from, a higher self or God or whatever it is that you believe in. And I hire like that. If somebody walks in, I get an instant yes or an instant no. I feel it right here. Even just deciding like what's a good new modality to bring in or bringing in new equipment, I really tune in and think about it. And if it feels like a yes, I'll do it. And if it feels like a maybe, I don't do it because that means no.
It's an interesting thing. Do you ever read the book, The Tipping Point, Malcolm Gladwell?
I like Malcolm Gladwell a lot.
And, he talks about, the intuition, about these experts. And it's an interesting thing because I've also, studied similarly, traveled the world, and understand their brain is in the brain and it's also in the guts, right? And then in between,
have two brains.
We have two brains, and then you have the heart with the emotions. So when you say my feeling, it's not my emotional feelings; it's a deeper feeling. And when there's a certain higher intelligence that channels through, you feel it viscerally, literally viscerally, and But most people are shut off to that, but it's an ability we all have and something we can all cultivate.
And it's a gift. It's like a secret weapon if you trust it.
There's so many stories of people who in times of war or challenge or threats, they get a hunch to do this or do this, and they follow that. And again, the more in tune you are, the more you're able to really benefit from this higher level and more intuitive level of awareness. Of course, you think things through, you analyze things, but also in the tipping point talks about how having tremendous experience strengthens the intuition because you know what's real and what's not real. You mentioned that you're able to tell which healers were really dedicated and good and which ones weren't. So how did you develop that ability? Like what do you notice? What's the difference between someone who's like real or versus someone who's fake?
So I started off and I would try any healer, anyone who's been on a wellness journey, and I know you yourself have, and you're a complete miracle, which I love. But you'll try anything, and all of a sudden, everybody has an amazing healer, and you start running in different directions, and it can make you a little bit crazy. But when you're in pain, there's nothing you won't try. I tried so many methods. Iridology, which is the study of the eye, and I changed my diet, and Edgar Casey's method with castor oil. I mean, I was covered in castor oil, and so many methods, and some things definitely worked and some things definitely didn't. And so it made me really good at seeing, what was authentic to me. Different things resonate with different people, but there are healers out there who aren't great and they're very good at sales. And then there are fantastic healers out there that definitely have developed skills and can really help you. But ultimately, it's such an internal job. It came down to so much of disease is about like our own personal growth. It's like polishing a diamond. I don't think anything happens by accident. I think everything happens like for us, not to us, and everything's a hologram. But even something that seems so bad is actually a gift. But I didn't start off that way. It took a long time for me to get to that place. Like I went through a little bit of that victim mentality, and what happened after the accident, my head was almost on my shoulders, and I was working in Beverly Hills, which is the land of the most beautiful people, and people would come in and say, what's wrong with your neck? And I would look in the mirror and I'd feel like I was deformed. It took so much work to go inside of myself and really, take a good look at me and really develop my intuition. And so I really started to learn who was a good healer and who wasn't. And that's what makes me very good at this wellness center. It's like, it's built on energy, and like what's resonant with me. So, and it seems to be resonant with a lot of people. Like one of my favorite things that happened at the Salt Cave was this guy came in and he was beaten up by life. I could see he was disheartened, and he just seemed like he just seemed like he had no hope. And he went into the Salt Cave. He just had a salt session, and he walked out and he kept looking at me, and then he left the Salt Cave and he came back in a few minutes later and he said, "This place gives me hope." And I understood what he meant. He didn't expand on it, and now he's a great client and he comes in a lot.
So what okay, I have 100 questions.
And I'm just like, blah, blah,
so
blah,
what does it mean? No, you're doing great. What does it mean? What do you think he means when he said it gives me hope?
I feel like life's really hard, especially right now. And I think if you go somewhere that even if it's for a moment, that you feel a little bit better or you don't feel so down, I think that's hopeful. That I think that it's like, okay, things can get better. So, and I see that in a lot of people, especially now with the craziness of the world. And I also coach people, and what I've realized is we are so much more in control than we think we are in so many ways. And that's a whole different conversation.
No, it's an important conversation. Yeah. But I want to know what's happening in that moment. Like why?
When someone has that
why is it that him sitting in a salt cave, we're going to get into what a salt cave is and what all that means, but why is it that him sitting quietly in an environment that's set up in a certain way, what's changing for him physiologically, emotionally, spiritually?
Such a good question. And you actually answered it in what you said, because you said sitting quietly. Like how often do people sit quietly and they're not doom scrolling or watching something or hearing, stimulated by so much, but actually sitting in a magical place, because it is magical. I know you've been there, but it was very carefully designed. I've taken into account all of the senses, like sight, smell, touch, sound. So it's very carefully designed. So first of all, you almost transported to a magical place, and then you're sitting there for those 45 minutes. The salt's being pumped in, which is a toothbrush for your lungs anyway, and for a moment you forget of what's going on outside, and you're able to get in touch with yourself, with that place that knows everything's going to be okay. And I think for me, that's what it is.
So this is beautiful, because I was going to ask you a question, what's healing? And I think you just answered it. And I think the way I framed it, and curious to get your take, is that the whole essence of this podcast is that we have two souls in one body. We have the part of us that realizes we're separate. There's me and there's you. There's the microphone. There's the TV camera. There's all this stuff. We live in this multifaceted world. Yeah. But we also know through quantum physics, and we know through the mystics, that there's one energy system. And that energy system takes different shapes and forms. One of them is me, one of them is you, one of them is all this world. But reality is that there's just one energy. And so that reality exists within us, as does the reality of separation and individuation. Yeah. And when you're able to just sit quietly and you're not being reminded of your separation, of your temporary nature of this world that's threatening your existence and your sense of well-being, and you're able just to be. The natural godliness, unity, is able to emerge. It's there. It's a natural state. You don't have to find God. God exists and permeates. You don't have to find stillness. Stillness is the more fundamental state than the noise that is above stillness. We're just going back to that which is. And that, going to a natural state, you realize, this is who I am.
Yeah. They were so well articulated. And yes, exactly that. And there's so much noise, that takes us out of that state. Even just how you were talking, I felt instantly like calm, and I'm sure it did the same for your listeners, because it's exactly true. It resonates that that's the truth.
And I think that all these modalities, thank you, and I think all these modalities are tools that bring us to this deeper reality that exists within ourselves. When you talk about meditation, meditation is a stilling of the thought waves of the mind to that point where you just have the pure mind without all the ripples. It could be through music. It could be through sitting in the salt cave. It could be through massage, through all these different aspects. Just bring us back to ourself. And that's why I know you talk a lot about coming back to oneself, taking the time, just be with ourselves, our core self, our authentic self.
Yeah.
So, okay.
That's the journey.
That is the journey. So it's an interesting journey, right? And I think about for myself, and I think about for you. We've traveled all over the world, and the answer is right here.
Yeah.
The answer is just sitting quietly. And I didn't have to sit quietly in India or Israel. I could just sit quietly in the Roslyn Salt Cave in my own home.
Oh, in your own home, exactly.
In your own home. But there is also the reality. And this is something we were actually studying today in Torah, that there are certain places, even though God is everywhere, there's certain places and certain times that are particularly holy. That when I say holy, meaning that it naturally brings you back into this experience. If I put you in a movie theater with a violent movie or a horror movie, it's going to be very difficult for you to experience this holiness and this stillness within yourself. But if I put you into a place that's got a certain energy, a certain resonance, that experience is able to come out more naturally. And that's what you've created with the Roslyn Salt Cave. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay, beautiful. So with respect to the salt cave, what is a salt cave? And how does this differ from a spa? And so tell us a little bit about what that is.
Well, thank you for asking that. So we literally have 2 salt caves, and they are made of Himalayan salt. We got 9 tons of salt came from the Himalayan mountains in Pakistan. It was so heavy when it was delivered, it broke the sidewalk, and we had to fix the sidewalk. But it's that beautiful pink salt. And so I had Polish masonries come from Poland. They barely spoke English. I'm not quite sure how we figured it out, but they built this beautiful cave. So there's salt on the walls. In some areas, it's backlit. It's a beautiful pink hue, so it's very soothing and calming when you walk in. There's salt on the floor, so you actually walk on the floor, and the salt goes between your toes, and it's very exfoliating and very grounding. We have a waterfall. It's like a cascading waterfall, and we have salt growing on the waterfall, these beautiful white chunks of salt. And then the ceiling is made, the ceiling's the only thing that's not salt. And so these guys were brilliant. They built like a kind of a cage, and then they threw up some kind of a stucco, and the way it dried, it looks like stalactites. So, and then we put lights in. It really is a magical space.
Oh, that sounds really. Not only does it sound beautiful, I'm remembering from when I was in the salt case myself. So, what is the salt?
So
why? I mean, this must have cost a fortune.
A fortune.
Why bring this like salt from the Himalayas into Roslyn?
So just go back to it cost a fortune. So I used my kids' bat mitzvah money. I used their college funds. Like I was a single mom for a long time. I mortgaged my house, and I put everything into this because I was more scared of not doing it than doing it. And people said, "You're crazy, you're 50 years old, how are you opening up this place?" And I said, there's no way I can't do this. I'm supposed to do this. So, yes, it was very expensive, but wait, you said how?
But
Yeah.
Well, why?
Yeah.
I mean, why is? I mean, you're a smart, rational person. You worked at the Beverly Hills Hotel. You work. You're your mom. You're very pragmatic, and yet you're like Kevin Costner, and they will build in the Field of Dreams. They will build it, and we will build it, and they will come. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, so I believe that we have a soul contract. I think we up there, wherever that is, and we make these agreements so that certain people are going to be in our lives, certain lessons are going to be learned, and each of us have our own special gift, and we are supposed to contribute something to this world. Like you said, we are part of God, and for God to express who that entity is, we're sort of like extensions of Him, and we each have our own roles. So my soul contract, one of my soul contracts, I believe, was to create this space, a space of healing. And even the fact that my dad was a doctor and he did not take care of himself and died at the age of 62 and smoked 3 packets of Lucky Strike unfiltered a day, but he knew better. But he didn't take care of himself, which I find so often that doctors and healers don't take care of themselves, but they take care of everybody else. So one of my goals is to heal the healers. So I work a lot with the hospitals, and in fact, during COVID, I got such a great opportunity. I built a lounge called the Lavender Lounge at Northwell, where it's the most brilliant thing. The Team Lavender is a group of people in the hospital that are either Reiki masters, which are energy healers, or clergy, or social workers. And when there's some kind of a traumatic incident with one of their own, they activate Team Lavender. And they come and they debrief and they counsel. And so during COVID, they called me and they said, can you help us? We want to build a lounge for the doctors and the nurses and support staff in the hospital. And I was like, absolutely. So it was the beginning of COVID, which was really scary. No one was going to the hospital unless you're already sick. And I was like, okay, Dad, universe, you got to protect me. I ran up there with my little salt lamps and some diffusers, and I walked into this room that was cold and brightly lit, and I said, yeah, no way. We have to change this whole room. We have to build a salt wall. We have to bring in diffusers. We have to change everything. And then George to the Rescue, which is a show on NBC, they heard about it, and so they came in and they did a whole show about it, which is on George to the Rescue, and it was phenomenal. And so we built this lounge, and one of my favorite things, which was another story of hope, was I didn't know this, but the security guards at most of the hospitals are cops. So he was an NYPD cop, this specific guy. And he came into the Salt Cave and he told me, I have a lot of PTSD. And when I am feeling anxiety, I go into the Lavender Lounge and I put my hand on the wall, and he goes, it becomes an anchor, it grounds me, and it makes me feel safe.
Wow, this is really powerful stuff. It's amazing. So what is it about salt, though?
Salt is very healing. So this pink salt has 84 trace minerals that mirror the minerals in the human body. So it's fascinating in the Salt Cave. So how I do my salt spiel, I explain about how salt therapy is a recognized form of therapy. It's been used in Europe for thousands of years. And it was discovered by a doctor who was treating all the miners. And they were all dying of these respiratory diseases, but not the salt miners. So the doctor does all this research and discovers that salt kills bacteria in your lungs, your skin, your sinuses, anything connected to your respiratory system. So I see miracles in that room every day. And people are like, wait, hold on, it's just salt. Like, is that true? And I'm like, yeah, think about how much you use salt. You go to the beach and you straight away feel better from the salt air. Salt's a natural mood elevator. People fly to Israel, to the Dead Sea for salt therapy. If you have a sore tooth or a sore throat, they say gargle with salt water because it kills bacteria and it reduces inflammation.
So what I'm hearing from you is that it's not so much a miracle, is that this is a tried and true mineral that is proven to be incredibly healing and rejuvenating for people. and to restore them back, as you said, anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, all these different things, and shifts your mood. And look, at the end of the day, as you made me think about it, we don't realize we're just nothing but a container of minerals and all these formed out of the earth from dust to dust. So this is an aspect of earth that's healing us and connecting us to this. There's so much more I want to talk about, but believe it or not, we are at the end of our first episode. So if you're okay staying for another episode, we'll do episode number 2. And I have a whole idea of where we'll go with the next one. So Wendy, thank you for being here on episode number 1, talking about your own personal journey and your salt cave, in which we'll delve into more. Please, guests, stay tuned for episode number 2. Once again, this is Arnie Herz, your host of Habits of a Whole Heart. And I want to thank my guest, Wendy Shulman, who is the owner of the Roslyn Salt Cave, who just shared so beautifully about her own personal journey and healing. This is part of the hmTV series, Habit of Humanity Matters podcast series. Please tune in to Apple, YouTube, Spotify, and all the major outlets. Thank you very much.